let the public in?
Go ahead, yeah. All right, hi everyone. I'll give it 1 second and then we will get started. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. And Jonathan, can you do roll call?
Yes, Director Brett,
Here.
Dr. Flaherty,
Here.
Dr. Bertrand,
Here.
Dr. Freeman,
Here.
Dr. Aguilar,
Here.
Dr. Geis,
Here.
and Director Dashler is just coming in from the waiting room.
All right. So before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place and Scoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Before we move on, I want to begin the meeting with a moment of silence for Father John Stephen Hedges, who departed from this earth last week. Thanks, everyone. It feels odd to speak about Father John in the past tense because it was just feels like a couple of days, weeks since we were all together with him last, and feels like just yesterday that we were all getting sworn in together. You know, I just want to say I so admire the legacy that he leaves behind. It feels weird to talk about it in a past tense because so many of the things that he's worked so hard on are still very much alive and with us today. And I don't really have the words right now, but I'm sure that there's much that we're going to be able to do in the future to honor his legacy, someone who really was the best representative fighter and leader that a community could ask for. So we remember today, Father John. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Bertrand. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any board discussion? All right. Any public comment?
I just wanted to note one thing, just to make you aware. One of the things on the consent agenda is the C-Click-Fix expansion, which is a few more accounts. It's part of the new equipment from Ivy Beautiful. This is just coming on early because, you know, it's within the billing cycle to do it now, but they're going to come next week or next meeting with a fuller report of their equipment and marketing needs.
All right. Excellent. Thanks for that. All right. Let's do a roll call vote.
Okay. Director Brandt?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Dr. Flaherty?
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar?
Yes.
Dr. Deshler?
Yes.
Dr. Bertrand?
Yes.
And Dr. Geis?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time for any members of the public who wish to speak on matters that are not on our agenda tonight can speak to that now. And as a reminder, we won't take any action on any items not on our agenda except as provided for by law. Are there any requests for general public comment?
Spencer, this is Lieutenant Juan Camarena. I want to make a comment or make an announcement.
Go ahead.
For those that don't know, last week I learned that I'm going to be transferring out of the Isla Vista Foot Patrol Station and getting transferred to our Criminal Investigation Division effective March 22nd. So March 21st will be my last day as the Isla Vista Station Commander. And I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to reach out to work with you, for all your support. And I just want to say thank you. And even though I'm not going to be in Isla Vista, you guys still have my contact information and you guys could reach out to me if you guys have any questions about anything other than Isla Vista or even Isla Vista. My replacement is going to be Lieutenant John Maxwell, and I'll make in next week, I'll make some arrangements so you guys could meet with him and ask him questions in regard to his philosophy or how he plans to take over Isla Vista Foot Patrol.
Thank you, Lieutenant Camarena. And I just want to say, I think on behalf of all of our board, thank you for your service to our community. And we wish you the best of luck. We're going to miss you here in Isla Vista. I'm sure you're going to miss us too. I don't know what could be more exciting than our little community, but we really appreciate your service and thank you. Thank you for that. Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. I'd also like to express my thanks for Lieutenant Camarena. You've done a fantastic job and it's not always been easy. We've had a difficult number of years when you've been here. There have been lots of awesome times, but also lots of challenges. And through those challenges, we've been able to work together. We've been able to communicate honestly and openly. And even when we haven't lined up in the same position, we've been able to figure out what we can do together for the common good. So I really want to thank you for that. And we definitely look forward to working with the next lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Director Deschler.
Yeah, I just actually would like to echo the same comments just on as the newest, one of the newer members here, but I've had a chance to work with Lieutenant Camarena, and it's just always been a pleasure. I really appreciate your willingness to work with the UCSB community, the Isla Vista community. I've always found you always are providing information and really helpful and engaging and always kind of looking for solutions. And so I just really appreciate your willingness. I always don't like that. Every 3 years we have to say goodbye to someone who's just a really awesome member of the Isla Vista community. And so I wish you the best and I thank you for all that you've done on the behalf of this University Isla Vista community. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, are there any other requests to speak? General public comment? All right, we'll close public comment and enter our first item, review of draft board goals. I'll hand it over to John.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. So what was attached on the agenda for everyone to see was our board goals with track changes. So it's the old ones, but with all the revisions that I heard everyone bring up during our board retreat. So it's obviously still a draft, and we'd really love at this point to hear your input and how we can finalize these for the next meeting, and then that'll become really, our guiding principles for everything we do. So obviously things will also come up, but we try to, we're gonna be successful at these things for sure. So I can go over each change if that's preferable, or if you've all seen them, you can tell me what you like, what you don't like, anything that's missed or needs to be changed. What's your preference? Because there's a huge number of changes. I can just read through all of them. It could take a little time, but if that's what's preferred, we can do that.
I think it might be good. Let's have you go through them all.
All right, sounds good. So the first one is, the launch of it used to be launch of the community center. We put it now as reopen. Again, first thing would be to safely reopen it under the new guidelines and have an interim way to have programs before we have our more long range plan. I think that was something specifically mentioned at the retreat. We're gonna hire and train our new assistant general manager, who's going to be overseeing the operation in this area of work for the district. And so that's, those are the two major changes. Well, this is still pretty much the same. We cut out some pieces that were redundant, actually one moved down. We're adding in here, developing a facilities maintenance and management system alongside the county for these public spaces. And then also we're going to catalog and fund the immediate needs. So there'll be a long-term maintenance and improvement plan, but also an immediate one for things to make it usable for the public, which it's not right yet. So that's, and then we added like local to libraries because we're not just concerned about the state funding sources. So that's the first goal: community programs, community center. We say it's our #1 priority, so it's the first one here. The next one is, we kind of changed it. It was just improve safety in Isla Vista. So now we kind of matched it to our work group name, which is Reimagine Public Safety and Expand Justice in Isla Vista. And this one, we've got to continue identifying and researching the different policy options to improve service delivery and begin implementation if possible. And we also added into the first bullet point that as we're developing ways to monitor our programs and other ones, that we're going to do it in the context of racial justice, which is our resolution 9 from last year said we would be doing. And then we kind of modified our, it used to have the idea of a public safety committee, and we kind of just renamed it Public Safety and Racial Justice Committee, since that's what our work group is. And eventually that group can take in a public standing meeting that's different proposals for safety, diversion, and law enforcement. So, and then one of the goals was to increase use of some of these programs, like the stabilization center, which is one of the things that we've been here came up last fall. Is we want the services that do exist, we want to make sure that they're being utilized. So, put that into the goals. The next one is the developing a new culture for process for planning community events, not just large ones. So that's obviously being changed because we have our work group on nightlife, arts, and culture. And this one I think could still use some refinement overall, but based on where our discussions are going, and I think just got to keep an eye on things. So this one a little more not as finished as the rest, but the main change is that we're gonna this next year develop and implement a nightlife, arts, culture programming plan and coordinating with different groups. So that's the main change here, and he's still still working on the fine-tuning the other kinds of events. Community engagement, that's the one where we have a lot of exciting changes and things that we can really get done now. We have another item related to it in the agenda. We've got just continuing to build strong relationships with everybody. That was one of the things that was really highlighted during our retreat by some of our board members. I think it was, not just meet with groups, but to build relationships was brought up in the retreat. So that we made sure to make that explicit. We're going to develop, hire, and train a new staff position on community engagement and public information. So should be able to get that one done relatively soon. And then the last two are about our programs. So raising awareness about 2 of our programs that are could be better utilized. So, or could have better public awareness, See Click Fix and the housing mediation program. And the last goal for this year is to continue pursuing ownership of community facilities and public infrastructure, or improving it. So, continuing to take all actions towards ownership for 970 and 976. And remove the solar parking lot, which was in 2019, but has not been a focus of our current discussion. So it could come back in the future, but we're going to focus on 2 buildings this year. And the next, we're going to continue to, these last 2 in here are more program development. So to continue developing the Ivy Beautiful program in this way, and the Ivy Compost Collective, which is going to get permanent staff and operate a new compost pile, and has a goal of expanding the household served already. So that's our current year goals. And then going into the future, also a lot of changes, more changes in the future ones, especially because of discussions in the LAFCO process and the planning process and the STEP grant. So they're going to all connect here. So the first one is, increasing coordination of public services in Isla Vista. It's continuing to be one of our long-term goals. The first one is, we're talking about it today as well, which is actively engaging with the LAFCO process, which is cross-agency and service by service that looks at comprehensive service delivery in the area. So that would be to our interest of this goal, because that's what one of our goals is to make sure we have the best public services in Isla Vista and well coordinated. That's that goal. I think another one, we put in continuing to work on the nightlife plan in the long term as well. So it got in here in the short and long term. The second one is where we have a lot of big changes. So it's, it used to just be develop a locally controlled planning program in Isla Vista, and I expanded or combined it with the other one to make it, a locally controlled land use, transportation, and parking program in Isla Vista, because they all do connect. And so there's a lot of discussion here about the STEP grant, learning more about planning issues, and working with the county, UCSB, and community members to ensure there's a public process to approve a community plan in Isla Vista. And there's some news about that today that we can share during reports from the Board of Supervisors meeting. The next one, Board Goal 3, it's now an entire public safety and justice goal because we actually didn't have one long-term before. It was kind of fit into another one. So now there's an entire long-term goal on this topic to match with the short-term. And this one is continuing on the same theme of working with community groups to develop and implement a plan to keep improving public safety in Isla Vista, focusing on some of the main topics that we have focused on, which are racial justice, harm reduction, mental health care, unarmed responses, continue expanding utilization of services, and continue to participate in means for formal community oversight and review of law enforcement agencies. And that's connected to our last resolution 9 as well. And then another one, build a stronger community. Again, this is another one where we got some good improvements here where we're going to commit. We're going to have some regular program where we can maintain an active communication with every household in Isla Vista. That'll be a goal. I think that's something achievable that we can get to in such a small place, and continue working with community groups and property owners, businesses, nonprofits, and this goal continues to have our support for a year-round population of Isla Vista, education on civic issues. So mostly the same here. And the last one is again on the issue of ownership and public infrastructure. Continuing to work on the transfer of the buildings, fully utilize these buildings for the community's benefit. We're going to get them started this year, but over the long term, they're going to be their full selves and be able to fully serve the community. And then stay engaged on state legislation that is going to be able to bring us more resources for facilities and infrastructure and improvements. And that's pretty much the entire board goal. Nothing was really deleted unless it was completely, out of date, or it was really like reworked or reused somewhere. If the goal was met, it was maybe improved. So that's pretty much what we've got. So I'd love to hear some feedback from the board on, it could be small changes like, this word here doesn't work, or it could be this entire goal maybe is missing something. So please let me know what you're thinking. It's your goals.
Great. Thanks for running through that, Jonathan. Do we have any questions for board members? Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. Jonathan, Deborah, great job. This was very comprehensive. One suggestion I have is, I know we mentioned in there Ivy Beautiful, but to explicitly put in there a goal of working to help reduce homelessness in the community, I think will be important, just because of how intense the situation is right now as a result of COVID-19. And we are doing a lot of that work between Ivy Beautiful, our partnership with the coordinated entry system, and support of other service providers. So to just have that in there as an intention of us for this next year, I think will be really good.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Any other questions or feedback from board members? Director Freeman.
Yeah, so the one thought that I end up having, which I appreciate, I mean, it's just, I'm not going to terribly relitigate anything, but since we're being asked for board feedback, I want to make certain that it's not that the rubber stamp of approval from Jay as far as things are going along. Is that some of the board goals that I had previously been very excited about the way they've been written have now kind of scope creeped in a way that I think are no longer something that our district is even supposed to do, much less, or is able to do, much less is something that I think would be a good focus for the money that we have. The two things that are like jump out at me when I see this are the sorry, I got lost here. Develop a locally controlled land use, transportation, parking planning program for Isla Vista. This board goal has been expanded now from working on how to understand the benefits of an area planning commission and how to think about setting up the area planning commission into working on planning, which is not what our power is. And that I think that that the extent to which we are going to now start looking at us doing the planning is again an incorrect usage of our funds given the power that we have. And then the scope creep on increased, no, it's not that one. It's the one about large community events. Develop a new culture and process for planning community events is what it used to be. And it was really looking at, my understanding of when we were looking at these goals was from a safety angle, that there was a big public safety issue with having the large community events that were occurring in Isla Vista, and that we were, I should say the old word had the word large, and that one of the goals that we actually had as part of taking on some of the public safety angle was to figure out how to mitigate the cost to the community of those large community events. But now we've kind of scoped creeped into instead working on ways we can start working on developing nightlife, arts, and culture programming plan, and essentially trying to figure out how to take on the goal of recreation and entertainment in the area, where again, that's something that I think we're not even just don't have the power to do, but are explicitly denied the power to do. And the extent to which we believe that the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District isn't doing that job, which I guess is the implication of us trying to do this. That's something that I feel people should either be taking to the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District, public comments complaining, they should be running for the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District, but that it should not be something that the Isla Vista Community Service District is essentially trying to take over in the background. So it's interesting that, I mean, like in comparison to the previous set of board goals that I felt very able to stand behind, I'm no longer able, sadly, but again, as a minority board member here, so I appreciate, I'm not even voting on this right now. I'm no longer feeling able to stand behind the set of board goals we have. So, thank you.
Do other directors have comments or questions? Director Bertrand.
Sure. Thank you. I'd like to respond to the second part of Director Freeman's comments, which I appreciate your position on this. And I had a feeling that that might be one of the places of interest for you. But I mean, I still feel confident that our district is on strong ground working on these issues. When we look at why the Isla Vista Community Services District was formed, it was formed out of a lack of coordination of all of these services. And it was formed out of a lack of public spaces and programming in those spaces. And while it's not on us to do everything, it is on us to do our part. And that's why I think we're in a good position to work with our partners to bring about this public process to improve nightlife. So I respectfully disagree, but I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thanks for that comment, Director Bertrand. And I'll mention, just going back to, I think, the first part of your comment, Director Freeman, about planning, that the way that I read that our board goals there, I mean, well, for the first thing, we're already doing just about all of the goals, becoming informed about the Isla Vista master plan, the duties of an area planning commission, investigating that, as well as participating and owning the STEP grant, which we have applied for and been awarded. So I don't see that goal as committing any funding towards, say, like land use planning or supplanting any services that the county is providing. I think that it's in line with what we've already taken action on as a board. So I'm not quite sure that I follow there.
Oh, I voted no on some of those individual actions, including, for example, voting explicitly no on our looking into hiring a consultant in order to understand the master plan process. So that's why, like, I hope at least my position is consistent, even if we don't have to agree. But it's not that I'm like, you know, how could you be against a goal that we're already doing? I was against us doing it.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Any other feedback from board members about the goals? All right, not seeing any. I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on revised board goals?
Hey, Spencer, I have a comment.
All right, Mark, go ahead.
I guess I have two comments. One is, not necessarily for me, but I guess for the public at large. I would just love if it could be kind of clarified, like what the purpose of each of these, what the board goals are. Like, is every single policy decision for the next year have to be in line with these board goals, or can policy decisions deviate? Or are they just a thinking process for the board to think about just personal priorities? That's one thing I'll say. And the other thing I'll say is I would just, there might be some, and I may have missed it, but I'd love more explicit mention of climate change, because all kind of contemporary policies, oftentimes are indirectly climate policies. The Compost Collective Agreement to me is a climate policy in some way. Any future planning document, whether it's associated with this board or not, is indirectly a future climate policy. And I think we need to start thinking in those terms. Just those are my comments. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mark, for those comments. Are there other comments from members of the public on the board goals? All right, I'm not seeing any, so I'll bring it back to the board. I did want to address one part of Mark's question, and I believe I'm looking at the purpose of the board goals. The purpose of this section is to provide management clearly defined goals from the board to best align staff time towards the policy priorities of the board. And I didn't come up with that on my own. Our staff came up with that and worded it very well. And I think it pretty succinctly puts into perspective what the purpose of the goals is there. Director Deschler.
Yes, I think that it might be helpful. I don't know where these live on our website, but I think it would be helpful to include a link or some information on the powers of the district, because there's a lot of things that are in here that are directly tied to the powers of the district. And I think it would be important for people to be able to see the nexus between what IVCSD is allowed to do and then the development of the board goals from that.
We can definitely add a new section to the document, and it will be on our website. So yeah, I can add it like after our values, our powers, or.
That is a great point. And I guess I'd ask our legal counsel. I mean, I know that I mean, I'm sure that we can do that. But was that something that you would advise? Just because I know that there are members of the public that might wish to try and throw stones, at our vision for the community. Is it prudent for us to sort of put, I don't know, a preemptive sort of legal justifications out there?
Well, I think I certainly have referenced Government Code Section 61250 many times. I'm glad that nobody's playing a drinking game for my references to it, or nobody's betting $1 for every time, because it is the foundational document for the existence of this district, since it exists outside of the other particulars of the special district law. So, simply citing to that or providing a link, or even providing the language verbatim for people, certainly is in the interests of good governance and transparency. But what the board is considering now are really just very broad policy goals and not specific actions. And in the end, the specific actions that the board may take or bring up for consideration to take is ultimately the legal analysis of whether a power is being relied upon sufficiently. It's going to be something of a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, talking about lifestyle and lifestyle issues and the public arts and culture and nightlife, broadly speaking, yes, it could be something that falls within the community programming power, but the specifics of how that might be carried out in any given scenario will be important for making sure that it is grounded in the language of 61250. So in the interest of good government transparency, certainly it's right there. It's also part of the government code. You can look it up online on your own, providing that information in an easy to reference place. Certainly no harm in that. But I think it's important that the public understands that these policy goals, I think, are really discussion topics, and the specifics of any given program or service will always involve a legal review to make sure that action taken by the board is firmly grounded in 61250.
Great. Thank you for that, Ross. That's very informative and good as we think about this. Are there other comments or questions from board members? Director Bertrand.
Thank you. I remember at our retreat, Director Geis spoke a bit about just the importance of us continuing to be active with promoting COVID safety and promoting people getting vaccines when that comes online, and supporting the COVID response. And forgive me if that's already in the goals for this coming year, but just making sure we're mentioning that, which much of it will be similar to what we're already doing.
No, I actually think I missed that. I do remember him bringing that up, but there's no line about that. So thank you for catching it.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. And yeah, I definitely can see that following something within our community facilities goals, and as well as just general public safety. And I do know we've referenced sustainability a number of times. I know we had the comment about specifically mention climate change and carbon emissions. Maybe if we want to bring back a second draft, we can just make that explicit. And Director Geis, I saw you had a hand.
Yeah, I just, when I review these and look at them and compare them to what we had done in our first set of goals, these are, quite ambitious. And I hope the community, after we pass another year or however we follow these goals, that when we don't achieve one of these goals, which there will be some we don't achieve, that we don't look at that as a failure, but it really are guidelines for our staff to work on these ambitious goals and make sure that we improve the community in a whole variety of ways. So I think we've done a really good job about laying out these goals again. And for a young organization, you know, I'm kind of proud to be part of this, that we do have this vision. And so just my comments.
Great points. Thank you for that, Director Geis. Okay. If there are no other comments, I think I entertain a motion. If anyone wants to make one, I think, oh, Director Bertrand.
Motion to direct staff to return with revised board goals.
All right. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
All right. Any board comments on the motion? Okay. Then with that, I think we'll go to roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Gashler,
Yes.
Bertrand,
Yes.
and Geis.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Okay, next item on our agenda is the community engagement public information position.
Great, so I'm gonna share my screen on this, and I'm gonna introduce quickly, but I'll turn it over to Deborah since she wrote all this and she'll walk you through what she was thinking. But we're bringing this back since at the retreat, it was one of the top priorities that was mentioned, is that we really wanna get better in this area and get better in a permanent way by hiring someone whose job it is to handle all these things. So what Deborah worked on doing is, creating an about the position, and there's a long list of different kinds of duties, and that's not going to be all the duties because it's so many, or it could be. But the idea is to hear from you all, how to refine this before we bring it back for a final copy. So this is just a laundry list, and we can cut or add, or it's just there to brainstorm. So Deborah, I want to turn it over to you to maybe walk through your thought process on this and where you were going, and then we can have a discussion. Deborah, I think you're muted.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. One of the things that we wanted to do right off the bat was to begin to establish some consistency in the way that we design our job descriptions and look at the work that is done and fold these roles and responsibilities into our goals and objectives. So you're going to find that as we continue to go forward, there's consistency in looking at our titles and describing work about the CST and setting forth information about the position. We really want you guys to be involved in what we set forth as our position, our vision for the Community Services District. You're going to see that we are going to consistently look to design and set forth an ideal candidate profile. Again, identifying identifying candidates that most likely will apply for these positions and again, meet our goals and objectives and become part of that team. Jonathan and I have talked about looking for someone who is fervent or enthusiastic about community services goals and objectives. So we try and outline that in the ideal candidate profile. And then as he mentioned, we did do a whole laundry list of examples of duties. And we're trying to capture those things that you have shared with us are most important in regards to reaching out and establishing a presence in the Isla Vista community. And we are going to consistently look at the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for effective performance, not even effective, but really, again, a robust type of performance and the fulfillment of these things that we hope this person will accomplish, the jobs, the duties that we hope the person will accomplish. We've established a minimum educational guideline, which again, we'd like to have your input on, but this job description was based on an analysis of other public information officers or community engagement officers positions that are currently out there and open in recruiting. And we looked at the CSD, the California Services District job descriptions to put all of these things together also. A couple of things I want to ask you guys to pay particular attention to, and I'd like to get your feedback on specifically, is the information that we've provided about the position. If you look at that very first line in the about position right there, the community outreach specialist supports the district's goal to increase the outreach through promoting the community and enhancing public relations and communications. And we hope that that is a one-line, description of really what you envision this person or the incumbent fulfilling the role that they will fulfill. And along that, in that same area, just beneath that in the second paragraph, you'll see that the community outreach specialist will identify opportunities for community engagement and involvement via a variety of IVCSD enacted or supported programs and activities. And we thought we would make that pretty broad reaching, a real umbrella for all the different things that this person might be involved in. But you see, after that, we begin to enumerate some things or set some things forth. And you guys might want to specifically add things there that are more in line with or specific to your goals. But I think we captured a lot of that. The other, again, the ideal candidate profile, I'd love for you guys to look at that, give us some feedback on that, because this person is definitely going to be our representative in the community. The examples of duties, those first three duties, those first three lines, again, we tried to make those umbrella-like, overreaching, expansive, but specific to what we heard you say that you wanted this role or this person in this role to accomplish. So feedback there would be great also. Those are my hot points. We set a salary range that we thought was currently commensurate with what we're looking at in the district as we build out our staff structure, but our pay ad hoc committee will certainly be looking at this too. So our timing on this is good. We're going to continue to rely on CSD salary survey and classification information as we refine this. And we're looking to see if we're on target with your goals and objectives for bringing a team member on that can really be engaged in getting us more deeply entrenched in our community. Are there some questions?
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Have questions from members of the board? Director Freeman.
Questions or also comments and feedback?
All. We'll take it all, Jay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm very excited to see this positions to the point now where we're at doing a non-application, the job listing for it. This is something that I've been very excited about us having for, well, this is before the district even existed. I was kind of pushing on the idea when we were working on the AV3 of having some kind of public information office. And I think that to the extent to which we do things, we need to be able to communicate those things, and the extent to which our board does things, we need to be able to get feedback from the community on that, and that bringing that message to where they are is important. one of the reasons why I'd been excited about this is important for it's important for the background that I will provide here, is that I'd worked for a long time on doing things similar to this activity in the community when I had a lot of free time. And somebody I was working with constantly was somebody named Britta Gustafson, who currently maintains the Isla Vista local wiki. She's one of the moderators on the RUC Santa Barbara. And she had worked both at my company doing community management and like event coordination, and then now works at the federal government doing similar kinds of activities. So I brought this document to her as the kind of person who would do this kind of job, and in order to get her feedback. And a short list of things that I've kind of cobbled together out of her feedback there is a few wording things that I'm sure I can talk to Jonathan about at some point later after the meeting. But although there's one in particular, there was the wording entrenchment of the IVCSD that she noted. Maybe that should be something that almost even has like almost a negative connotation in some sense. But the big thing she was looking at was how much support does this person have? So one of the things when you're constructing, when you're doing all this kind of outreach work, is that you might be doing graphics design. And it's not entirely clear from the scope of this document whether or not this person is expected to have extensive graphics design experience, or whether they will be able to contract out for graphics design, or whether you're just going to make do with not doing very much graphics design. Associated Students has somebody, Chelsea Lyon, who is not the person who's doing all of the community management and outreach, but she's the person who does the posters and other imagery that you see associated with various Facebook events. And knowing when you're applying to this kind of position that, well, I'm going to be expected to do that kind of work, or it's okay, they expected that I'll make do, or I'm going to be able to contract out for that. It's okay if I'm not really good at that, is important. And at least from my standpoint, like I can see myself doing a good job at a lot of these things, except I would be horrible at graphics design. I would need to contract out to do that and get that done. There's generally then the looking at like how much support do you get. So she thought it would be partly because you're interfacing with so many of the other functions of the organization. She said, I would want to know before applying, you report to the general manager. Your 3 coworkers are in other roles. You're in charge of comms, but the GM reviews your work. This is a great entry-level position for a person interested in government and or nonprofit communication career, where you'll meet a lot of people and develop a portfolio, but get some kind of feeling for how you will fit into the organization as far as the communication channels you'll have. And any career advancement opportunities that might be there. To take one of the specific items even that Deborah had mentioned, Britta had specifically noted for the degree that she thought it would be appropriate to say or equivalent experience. And actually, I was going to say earlier point about when we were talking about the graphics design and everything, that one of the things that was mentioned in here also was may develop television advertising. Television advertising is a very much more complicated bar of if you're wanting to do like little funny TikTok videos or various like viral things on Instagram or whatever, it's a different bar to be able to put together something that would actually stand up on television. Actually, a lot of television studios, even not studios, but like I forget, I don't know the right word, like the channels and everything have like quality bars that they have because they don't want their channel to look bad in some ways. And so I'm not certain if that is an appropriate level of expectation may develop television advertising, but yeah. So that was the feedback that I got from her earlier today regarding it, kind of summarized into things. And there's some various like subtle wording things I can just talk to Jonathan about. So
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, the television again. Yeah, it's just a laundry list. It's just one of the things that's in there. It's definitely something that obviously doesn't fit here as much as social media. So makes sense. So.
And we definitely could use your expertise, your SME expertise in regards to the related technology and terminology to attract the right person. So yeah, we're glad to have your input. Thank you.
Great.
Anybody?
Any feedback? Director Deschler, go ahead.
Yeah, I really liked Jay's comments. I've had actually this position in local government, and so I was really curious to read the examples and of duties and that kind of thing. And I think it's really good. It's very comprehensive, and you definitely want, for this kind of community engagement position, you want to have kind of a laundry list. You don't want to be too constrictive in what this person's doing, because it's a nimble position in many ways. But with that said, I think what Jay mentioned is really important, is understanding kind of the reporting structure, that this person isn't necessarily a free agent. This person needs to work within the structure of IVCSD, take direction from the IVC general manager. And my question, what I wanted to ask is, where does this person fit? This person is going to report to the general manager, or is this person then going to report to a subsequent position that's hired in that's overseeing the Isla Vista Community Center? So that's one of my questions. And then I like also about having experience. I think that's judgment and experience is very important in this position. And so I think talking about that kind of maturity of judgment is important. And then I just wanted to ask, but Deborah, you kind of mentioned it, is where does this salary fit into the salary median that we looked at for community services districts in California? Is it in the 75% quartiles, at the 50%? I would just be interested in where that 65,000 fits. And then also, what is the level of the salary level when you factor in healthcare and other benefits? What is that? Is that 30% more? Is it more $95,000? So those are my three questions.
Yeah, just a quick note on the salary calculations and all that. I think we're gonna wait to finalize that with our ad hoc committee. So we're putting the 65 as a placeholder, especially since that's less than Deborah makes, which is what I told her. It will be less than what you make in the general scheme of what we end up. But yeah, we don't know yet where we'll actually have that, especially since, it says, it mentions a health plan. We don't even have a health plan yet, but that's what Deborah's job description actually mentioned as well. And there's still no health plan. So I can't really say, but it's just it's a pro forma at this point until our committee can figure it out. But they're meeting at 1 p.m. tomorrow to start working on that. And sorry, I forgot your first question, but I had the answer for it actually. I just don't remember what your question was.
The reporting relationship.
Oh yeah, okay, yes. So that's
We've
another
talked a lot about, yeah.
We've talked a lot about it, and that's one of the things we maybe want to hear more from the board, because when we originally created this position, it was more entry level, where it was really, it was more of an assistant to the person who'd be in charge of the community center. That's how the position originally started. Now it's grown into a bigger position, but it's not an assistant general manager, so it will not be at that level. But the staff structure that I'm starting to come up with, and that'll be another topic of discussion, and where this will fit in. But what I'm starting to come up with is, something like a general manager, and then 2 assistant general managers so far on major areas. If we ever expand, it'd be a 3rd one on other relevant areas. But then I wouldn't want to say this person is under any of the assistant general managers, since they will be working as part of the team, but they're also not at that level. So it's difficult. I'm really still struggling with where to place it, but it is the big question. It's one of the big questions. So any guidance from you all, if you see this as more of a higher level position or a lower level position, would be appreciated. But I started off thinking of it as more entry level, and it's kind of went up in terms of what kind of position it is. It's not just that anymore. I mean, they'll still take direction, of course, but it will not be as intensive as it was originally conceived. So
yeah, right now, Kirsten, you'll see we have it under the administrative direction of the general manager, because we thought we would have that as a dotted line relationship initially, because we do want this person to be able to have not necessarily autonomy, but as you said, judgment, the freedom to use good judgment in reaching out or establishing a relationship or building on a press release program or an ad program. We want them to be able to flesh some of that out, but to have that direction or guidance from the GM that really meets the goals and objectives from the board as we look to be entrenched, to be entrenched is not maybe the right word, but to become more of a presence in the community, to be made, we want that to happen. And we want that person to be able to do that.
I think those are all really good questions that you bring up, Director Deschler, and I'm wondering if you would share how, since you essentially were this, or even better than this, how your structure worked when you were with the city.
Okay, so when I was at the city of Goleta, I was worked for the city manager. So, so it's very similar to Jonathan, what you're describing is, so I was in the city manager's office as the PIO, public information officer. But I was below the level of other department directors, but then had a set of autonomy to be able to interface with all those other department directors, but didn't take my administrative direction from them. That came from the city manager. So, and that was helpful because it allowed me to represent Goleta in a way from that I was getting my priorities from the city manager, but was high level enough to be able to go into meetings, represent that I was working for the city manager. That was very helpful. So I don't think putting this position underneath another administrative level is helpful, because you definitely want them to be able to go into meetings and know that they are representing the leadership of the IVCSD.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to phrase it that way.
Yeah. Thank you, Kirsten. I will probably reach out to you a little bit more, but you can see we have that dotted line there. So that's in line with, I think, what you're sharing. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is like a baby of mine. I love this position. It's such an important position. And so many times you see local government, just because of finance, doesn't prioritize this position. And I'm such a big fan of really good community engagement, because it is the link between the government and the people and explaining that connection. It's just so important. So, and I'll just share that initially, when I worked at the city of Goleta, it was when the city was very young, and it was initially not a public information officer position. It was a management analyst position, and it was only when that the city of Goleta had a very big crisis. There was the post office shooting, and when that happened, the city realized they had no way to communicate with the public and with news media about what had happened. And that's actually became the genesis of that position, was recognizing this need to be able to connect to the community what the city was doing and vice versa. And it was so I just love that IVCSD is being so proactive in creating this position, because it's a really important position. So.
Okay, well, I'll pick your brain later.
Yeah, thank you for that background, Director Deschler. I certainly did not know that, but it makes a lot of sense. And I'll say that I think for probably just about all of our board members, at least for me, when I look through the job description, I see some of these things and think, there are so many things on the duties list that we have all already done for the district, just in sort of an ad hoc way, right? Because that's sort of what you do when you're a startup, when you're bootstrapping, and really engaging the community at a grassroots level, being organizers. But this has been such a dream for us to have someone who's full-time dedicated to it, so that we can ensure that not only we're pushing out information, but we're getting in information. And I think that's something that would be awesome to have reflected. I don't know how you reflect it. I think about an ideal candidate, and the word that I think about, I'm a little bit biased, but the word I think about is organizer, because you're working both to push out information for the community, but you're also helping them gather input from them. And bringing that back to the district, so that we are stronger and more connected with the community. It's not just one-way communication, two-way. So the one thing that I was going to mention, that a question that Deborah asked about, I believe, the first sort of opening paragraph. And I think that it would be good for us to mention among the different services there are public safety programs and just, I guess, our community engagement around public services such as transportation planning now that we have the STEP grant, because I know that that's going to be, you know, a really important part of our public outreach as we move into the second half of this year. So I think it'd be good to include those two.
That'd be great. That's a good idea. And I did forget to mention that this position will be partially funded by the STEP grant for the first couple of years, because they'll be working on that.
Excellent. Any other feedback from board members?
No. Oh, Bob.
Director Geis, go ahead.
You know, we haven't had a chance to discuss this, but I've been kind of thinking about, you know, where we want to make Isla Vista a better workplace or provide workforce housing. And I'm not sure how much in the benefit area, if we ever do want to, you know, put some benefit provisions in there that help people with the cost of living in Isla Vista, and as an incentive to maybe live in Isla Vista or with, you know, close by Isla Vista. Like I know where Deborah lives, that's close enough by Isla Vista where she could be into Isla Vista on a bicycle or, you know, very easily in a short period of time. So I was just thinking that with the benefits committee, you know, or the pay structure, do we want something like that to kind of get people to join the community and live in the community, even though I know it's really expensive to do that? So just something for us to pursue as the benefits committee. But
yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Bob.
What's that?
Thanks for mentioning that, Bob. I certainly think that's something that's worth looking into. It definitely fits in line with one of our big goals of having a more multi-generational community.
We will definitely talk about that, Bob, in our ad hoc.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you all. We'll take these revisions and keep working on this, but I'm glad we're generally there. So we'll have this ready to go out. You know, once our pay ad hoc is done with its work and we can get this out, we'll get it out. I think we have a question about public comment in the chat.
Yeah, so well, first I was gonna ask Sap, do we need to make a motion on this item?
I don't think so. We'll have a motion when we have a final one.
Okay, so then now that's when we normally go to public comments. So any public comments? I think I have one from Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, everyone. I just want to acknowledge like just how awesome the discussion was on this topic. I really love what Jay brought in and what every single person brought in. And I also love that I have the opportunity to make an argument to you all about this position and to consider really like what is a college degree for a moment. And I go to UC Santa Barbara. I find my college experience and what I get out of my education tremendously valuable. And I also know that I am not particularly trained for a given individual job. And that's not a bad thing. It's something that I'm still getting a tremendous amount of value out of. And so when I see something like the standard that has somehow become the standard of having a requirement for a 4-year degree on an application, I guess I kind of question whether or if that's like an essential item or if that's kind of just a standard practice item versus an associate's degree. Some college, or as Jay exactly said, but I don't think this is necessarily an equivalent, like equivalent experience. So like some of you may know that like I'm a member of the U.S. Army. And so as a member of the U.S. Army Reserves, I know a lot of public information officers in the Army who don't have any college experience whatsoever. But because the line is a minimum of a 4-year degree, it's very prohibitive to those people, to people who don't have the privilege of going to college, to people who are in the middle of getting their 4-year degree from UC Santa Barbara, who live in Isla Vista, to Director Geis's point, who may be very apt and have the attitudinal experience for a job like this one. And so I guess I would offer you all to consider, I guess, like thinking bigger than just the 4-year degree. As a UC Santa Barbara student myself, I want to acknowledge that right there. Anyways, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you for those comments, Mark. I know that when we meet tomorrow as the pay and benefits ad hoc committee, well, I think it's pay, benefits, and personnel. That's definitely something that I think we can consider and speak about a little bit more in detail, because I think those are all really compelling points that you and Director Freeman bring up. All right, any other comments from members of the public? All right, then with that, we don't have a motion, so we'll have that coming back to our board in the future. All right, I want to skip now to item 4.4, which is the LAFCO Municipal Service and Sphere of Influence Review. And I'll hand it over to Jonathan.
Let me get my screen shared. Internet's going very slow today. All right, so this is, actually, I think we last had an update about this, not last, but we had a big update about this a year ago, and now we have another substantial update on the LAFCO Municipal Services Review. So I think it's some good news. I think it's going to be a great thing for our district to participate in. We actually have our executive officer from LAFCO on the call today as well. He can answer any questions that I'm not able to, or Jay's not able to, but what we're bringing to you all today is more of an informational item, but we want to talk with the board about it because we've talked about this topic so many times in our public meetings. But what is happening is LAFCO is undergoing a multi-year MSR process, and like we put in the goals, it's service by service and cross agency. So the first list of services, I was on the wrong page, but it's going to be fire, police, emergency, and safety. And then these would be the communities or districts that are being reviewed as part of that review, or we would be submitting information as part of that review. So we're one of them, along with the cities and county fire and the fire districts. And then, we're pretty much mentioned in every one, but at least, it's not an entire review of the CSD all at once. It's, year by year, we get reviewed on different aspects of our services in light of what others are doing as well. So that's why I think it's a really great thing. The commission did vote to, move ahead with this process and not the, singular large review of IVCSD next year. So this is a pretty big shift from what we were preparing for. And this first one, which, you'll see, I'll get you to the timeline in the second, or it's by May 7th is when we're going to be submitting this. It's a very quick turnaround, March and April, and we'll be bringing back our submission, like our responses for the board to approve at the end of April, so we can make the May 7th deadline. But what we're going to be submitting information about, some of it is basic, some of it is, technical about our boundaries in our district, but most of it is about service provision and how the services that we use or that we provide, how do they play out in the community? And then they will get, and some of these are not necessarily directly related to us, but we might have something tied in that we can mention. But it's, we really fill in the things that are relevant to us, that we have something to add. So we're going to be filling this out on the issue of policing, because that's one of our services, and safety. And we'll be seeing the results of this by the end of this year. And so that's really it. And wanted to, if the board had anything, we want to make sure I get into the first draft of the questionnaire on our questions about our public safety services, please let me know now. And otherwise, we're going to work on this and meet with LAFCO staff to learn more about how how they'd like the information presented and what kind of, we have so much, will we put in this or not this? But yeah, we're looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a great process. Again, I think it's going to really show, the gaps in service or the redundancies or, where things can be better. And it gives our board a lot of good information, I think, and the public. So yeah, wanted to turn it over to Jay to fill in any gaps that I might have missed, or Mike, who's the executive director of LAFCO, Mike Prater. I missed anything, but otherwise want to hear from the board of what are your priorities to make sure that I get into this report.
Maybe I'll just say that one of the big things this is doing is which someone had mentioned, is this spreading that municipal service review process out over the course of the next 5 years, and it's putting the first services that are being looked at are ones that the Isla Vista Community Service District is in a very strong position to talk about. So I think that going along with the process from LAFCO as other districts here is actually perfect for us. And I'm really thankful for Mike Prater to have put together this framework and to have thought about the Isla Vista Community Service District while putting together this framework, to have reached out to the district and communicated with Jonathan about this new framework. And I'm excited, just generally as a LAFCO board member, I'm excited to see what this new framework will mean for our ability to help the county obtain efficient service allocation. So.
Thank you for that, Director Freeman, and Jonathan, for the presentation. I just want to say at the outset, having reviewed the new methodology for the municipal service review, that I'm very heartened by the direction that this is heading, and excited that we can participate in this process. One thing that I noticed that's very different from even the conversation we were having about LAFCO even a couple of months ago is how transparent the process is. There's the questionnaire was right there, and all commissioners on LAFCO even had a chance to take a look at it as a draft when they were approving this, conceptual idea. And I know in the past we've had concerns on our board that sort of it feels like MSR is almost like a black box. We don't really know what criteria we're being judged against or what presuppositions the staff and commissioners may have. But with this, I mean, it's incredibly transparent, and I think that it's also going to present some really fascinating policy questions, even beyond that of those that directly affect our district. So I also want to echo the thanks to Mr. Prater for being so communicative with our staff, and thank Director Freeman for his support of this item when it came to LAFCO. My one question, I guess, having looked over the questionnaire too, is public safety is an interesting service because I think for just about every single one of those agencies that's listed, with few exceptions, they're contracting out their safety services. And while we're often compared to a city as the IVCSD, we're not a contract holder for the safety contract like cities are. For example, the city of Buellton or city of Goleta contracting with the sheriff's office, we don't do that for the general public safety. So is there a way that, I guess my question is, how are we going to clearly communicate that so that we're not, because we are very unique, and also communicate that part of our district charge is that we don't supplant the public services that the county is already providing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's, I think, going to be part of our meeting with LAFCO before filling this out is, what's the scope of our answers, and how do we fit in some of our issues into our answers? So I don't know if Mike, you're on the call, if you want to help answer that question now, or if we can figure that out at another time, but it'd be great to hear from you.
Great. Thanks for having the item, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me. Good discussion, obviously. Thanks for the support in this and liking this direction, obviously. I think to answer that question, we're not going to do a comparison of IVCSD to a city and try to draw a straight line comparison in our municipal service, and try to establish who does it better or who does it differently. That's really not really the goal here. The goal is really to get data-driven information that helps set where a sphere boundary should go. And so this initial service review is going to be a good starting point to generate this data. The information that I've read to date that Santa Barbara LAFCO has put together hasn't had a strong data set behind much of its analysis. And so I think this direction will help boost that level of conversation. And I think for this round, we'll get a good baseline of what that data is and what's it saying, and try to draw some conclusions about what it's speaking to us about, specifically for Isla Vista. And we're going to look at what better service options might be out there that could exist, and certainly get input from IV as the board and the community about what other needs there might be or what other opportunities there might be. So I think that's the goal with this municipal service review.
Thank you for that context, Mr. Prater. I think that helps us sort of actualize all of this. And thank you for being here. Any other questions or comments from directors? Director Bertrand.
Thank you. Well, I think it's very timely that the first item is public safety and specifically policing. And I know for Isla Vista, one thing that is something that can be confusing for folks is we are policed by several different agencies. And I hope that out of this process, there can be some good kind of public understanding of how policing occurs in Isla Vista, and perhaps that'll be helpful for when we communicate with our community about how we can best partner with law enforcement and make improvements in that area. So I'm really encouraged and excited for how this is going to start.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Director Geis, I think I had seen your hand earlier and I cut in front of you.
Yeah, I was just trying to, figure out, since the special districts started with rural boundaries and then cities are formed and services get transferred. I was just trying to hear more, and Mike, already said that this is going to be data driven, I think the interesting thing, I've dealt with special districts for a long time. It's difficult to get that data. It's going to be interesting to try and pull that data or get people to share that data. But my first question was going to be, is LAFCO going to start doing things like saying, well, Montecito Fire District and Carpinteria Fire District, have a continuous border, should they be combined? Is that something that they're ever going to tackle, or no? I mean, I just wasn't sure of the objective of the data review. I don't know if it's a redivision of property tax or, a combination of districts or how that's going to work, or I just wasn't sure of what data we're giving them that's going to help us get better decisions. So I was just a little. I'll watch it play out. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Mike, maybe it would be useful to provide kind of context on what a sphere of influence is in the process that we have at LAFCO for taking municipal service reviews and providing recommendations.
Yeah, so hopefully viewers had an opportunity, if they didn't, to go back and watch the LAFCO commission meeting where we walked through what a municipal service is and what the intent of a sphere of influence is, and you certainly can go back and replay that. That was a good precursor to this program explaining what a municipal service does and what the sphere of influence does. And it really, the sphere is of kind of the precursor to what an area might be annexed and needing of urban level services of that nature, or really generally any services that an agency might provide. And the municipal service component of that is the analysis behind one piece of the factor of information to draw the boundary of the sphere of influence. It's not the sole piece of information, but certainly LAFCO has the authority and where we deem fit to draw distinction on governance and what structures are best in the future, or something that LAFCO can do. So if we'll let the information from the municipal service review, we'll let information from the various boards that we're looking at kind of help guide the decision as to whether or not consolidation of services, like for your example, Director Geis, of the fire districts, if that's something that is of desire by the two entities and makes sense from a data-driven information, then those are conclusions that LAFCO can draw and provide some guidance to and encouragement for, and ultimately we'll kind of see where that plays out. But I don't think we go in to this process with a foregone conclusion that that's the outcome that we want. We're going to kind of let it play out and see what happens as what the information tells us, as what the districts tell us, what their goals are. Part of the information and the gaps in between are really what we deemed as study areas. So many of these agencies might have a vision of an area that they don't quite serve today. They may have heard from landowners or certain groups that they'd like to have service provided by them in any one of these categories. And so those are areas that LAFCO would fold into these reports as study areas and take a look at that and what best service would be provided for those areas, or for them to remain in the more rural nature of the unincorporated county. So those are all distinctions and conclusions that can come out of these service reviews. And ultimately, the sphere of influence is a line that's drawn by LAFCO that will dictate where an area can be served in the future.
Great, thank you for that, Mr. Prater. Are there other questions or comments from board members? Okay, then I think I would open it up for a motion. I think we're just directing staff to participate in the municipal service review process for fire, police, and safety.
Chair, I would like to mention one other thing that I did happen to note, that on the LAFCO website, we do now have our community-based survey up and running. So we've got a simple little 8-question survey that we're encouraging either staff members, board members, or even all members of the community to log on to our website, answer a couple of quick questions about services, capabilities, and kind of their feel of whether or not it meets expectations or not. We encourage you to have your viewers visit the LAFCO website. It's right off our main homepage, and click on that little survey monkey and answer those 8 questions. That'll be open until we take a public review draft forward. So that's likely in late summer, maybe early fall. Plenty of time to answer that 8-question survey. So thanks for those that want to participate.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Mr. Prater. I know we'll be sending that around. I think our council has dropped the link in the chat for interested members of the public too. Thank you. All right. Do I hear a motion from any board members? Director Bertrand?
I move to direct staff to participate in the public safety review as part of the LAFCO process.
All right. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, made by Bertrand, second by Flaherty. Now is the time for public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak? All right, seeing none, back to the board. Any other final discussion from board members? All right, we'll go to roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yeah.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Deschler,
Yes.
Director Bertrand,
Yes.
and Director Geis.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Prater, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Now I'm going to go back to item 4.3, which is district COVID-19 response. And I'll turn it over to Jonathan with any updates that you have.
Great. Nothing major in terms of updates. Obviously, we're working on the Deltopia project, which is the main response, I would say, that we're working on COVID-19. But just a little update is in terms of getting the vaccine information out in the community. We are working with public health and the county's public information team. So one example is we're getting bilingual posters on vaccine information delivered to St. George Youth Center, just to make sure that the population there who's going to our food distribution is getting information about getting vaccinated at the same time. So we're doing things like that and distributing that kind of information, but nothing major. We're just working on the Deltopia plans to see what we can do to have a diversion from large gatherings that are a violation of the health order in April.
Thanks, Jonathan. I would just add to our report on Deltopia. As you all know, it is very time sensitive. It's coming up fast, and so our deadline to sort of make a decision on this is very soon. And we're lining up all of the different partnerships as we speak, and I think are going to bring something back to our board for a special meeting to approve a contract or consider a contract very soon, hopefully this week. So certainly be on the lookout for that. There's been a tremendous effort by so many players in the community, and we've had good partnerships so far with UCSB Student Affairs, and we're just waiting on some final information and approvals from them to be able to bring something forward. And also gotten strong support from the associated students where I've been speaking directly every couple of days with the president about moving this forward and potentially finding funding sources within associated students to help offset some of that cost. So it really is a collaborative effort, and we are looking forward to how that goes. If anything, I think as recent events this last weekend, I think have showed us both in Isla Vista and nationally in other parts of the country, it is just so important that we provide people with a safe alternative for these weekends that we know are going to be high traffic, where folks may be gathering. Any questions or comments from board members? Director Geis.
I'll just say that my wife and I both got our first vaccine shot, and I went to Cottage through their drive-through over by the hospital in Goleta, and it was just very, very well done. They had, a tremendous amount of volunteers, doctors, RNs, and they moved you through that line very professionally and just did a really good job. They, how well, it was just so well organized that my time was at 10:45. They marked that on my window, gave me the shot. And at 10 o'clock, they marked it on my window that I had my 15 minutes were up, and I never left the car line. It was, 8 cars that were in that line, and we went through there, and it just was really well done in the community. And hopefully the supply just keeps flowing, and people are really encouraged to get these vaccines. Because I tell you personally, it really all of a sudden is a game changer for you to say, wow, I'm only 4 weeks away from having this process done, which is another 3 weeks to get your second shot, and then 2 weeks after that for it to be totally effective. And the doctor that counseled me was very clear. Don't change your practices. Keep your masks on. Keep doing all the things you were doing with hand washing, and not getting together in groups, because you're 55% protected. You're not all the way protected. And so therefore, they were really good. And I just encourage everybody that gets the opportunity to get a vaccine to get one. So that's just I'm lucky. I'm old too.
Yeah, thanks for that report, Director, guys. And glad to hear you're getting the vaccine. On the subject of vaccines, I'll just add, some of you might be aware that there's a recent announcement by the state that communities or zip codes that are lowest in the 20th percentile of the Healthy Communities Index are going to be prioritized for vaccine distribution. And Jonathan and I did ask Dr. Del Reynoso about this, because Isla Vista's census tracts are within the lowest 20th percentile. And we're still waiting back for a definitive answer. But I will note that I think from having looked at it that they might be basing it on zip codes and not based on census tracts. But that doesn't mean that health equity isn't a big deal in our community, and we still do have many of these populations, agricultural and food service workers that do live and work in our community, and would greatly benefit from some of that focused outreach. So we'll certainly report back if we hear anything new on that end. Any other questions or comments from board members? Director Aguilar.
Yes. So similarly, as a UC employee, it's been kind of discussed with my line of work in the library as we look towards opening limited capacity for spring quarter, vaccination for our different levels of staff and employees. And it kind of just has appeared out of nowhere to me. A couple of weeks ago, we were discussing like what will happen in fall, and then we were going to be opening in spring our library in limited capacity, and then the next week it is now that we as a university are looking towards vaccination possibilities. I'm wondering maybe if Director Deschler has learned about any of this stuff from a more direct source than me hearing it through the staff member pipeline, or if there's been conversations about how this will be discussed with Isla Vista as a community from UCSB.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give an update. So of what I know. So UCSB was part of what's called an MCE, a multi-county entity. And so UCSB was getting vaccines directly from the state through the University of California. And that relationship has now, or that process, that supply is now ended. And the reason it ended is basically because the Blue Shield is taking over now the vaccine distribution and administration. And Blue Shield had a certain set of requirements that non-medical campuses could not meet. So Blue Shield is contracted with the medical school campuses, a part of the University of California, but has not contracted with schools, universities that don't have a medical school. So Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz. So that means that the campus will not be getting any more vaccines from that state source. So we sent out, the chancellor sent out a message this afternoon, late this afternoon, to all staff and faculty members and students, basically laying out the different ways that staff, students, and faculty could access the vaccine at the various local levels. So through pharmacies, through Santam, through Cottage. And our understanding is that so last week the county had announced that transitional kindergarten through 12th grade was eligible for the vaccines, and there was a system set up by the county superintendent's office. Higher education has been working with the county on kind of a similar planning strategy. And so we were doing that. And then today at the board meeting, it was announced by Dr. Van Reynoso that education defined as higher ed and TK through 12 is now eligible for the vaccine. So that's what we've heard as of today. And so it means that UCSB staff and faculty should look to Sansom, Cottage, and local pharmacies for vaccine availability. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you for that update, Director Deschler. And let's celebrate the good news for our university and college employees. All SBCC, UCSB, joining our other segments of education and becoming eligible. It's great to hear. Any other questions or comments? I see Director Bertrand.
So I'm actually going to, I guess, pass this to Jonathan, but Jonathan, you shared some information looking back to the meningitis vaccine efforts at UCSB in years past. And I think that's an awesome demonstration of what will be possible here when it's time for younger people to get the vaccine and when the supply is ready.
Yes, no, I mean, it's definitely going to be probably in the spring quarter. I keep seeing that there'll be enough vaccines for everybody by the end of May. So May and June, I could see it as the time when we really want to be part of a big effort. Maybe at the end of April, getting people ready. But yeah, there's a lot we can do, making sure that we show that there's people who are young getting the vaccine as well. Everybody in the community, a diverse picture. Everyone supports this. So definitely would be part of our efforts. But yeah, I did do that when I was a student. I was student body president. We had a meningitis outbreak, and we all got the vaccine and took pictures. And something that simple, just saying, look, I got it. It was something that was suspicious to some people that it was not available yet in America, but was only available in Europe. So there was an extra effort to say, look, this is safe. It's been approved. We got it. So,
Director Deschler.
I just wanted to make another comment because I see that Mika Iyer is on the on our meeting today from the Daily Nexus, and she's just done such a good job at asking good questions at the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department press conferences on Friday. And I think it was either last week or the week before, she specifically asked the question, where should students get vaccines? And I think Dr. Ansorg said, wherever you can. So I thought that was cute because he tends to be very measured in his delivery. But so we don't have any information yet to give to students on vaccines, but I just wanted to pass on that Dr. Ansorg did say that, and I'm sure there'll be more information coming out, especially as we move toward the fall quarter.
Great, yeah, thank you for that update, Director Deschler. All right, well, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, are we not? I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it, okay. I think if there's no other comments, then we'll close out the COVID-19 briefing. And we're going to go to the last item on our action agenda, which is review options for district credit card.
Okay, let me get my share screen, and I guess I'll say one last comment on COVID, which is our last in-person meeting was a year ago. So we're a year of virtual meetings at this point. But yeah, so credit card agenda report, I'll turn it over to Deborah, but I want to just say this is a long time coming since the first time we had a credit card agenda report in 2017 when we were brand new still, but really proud of the work that Deborah did to put this together, and we have a good recommendation at the end. So I want to turn it over to her to present this.
Yeah, I'm excited to get a credit card for the office. The need has existed since the beginning of the Community Services District. There's been a need for a credit card. Purchases primarily for office supplies and fixed furnitures and things of that nature. That's had to be done by staff. Staff has had to go out and make those purchases directly and using their own credit card or financing sources, and then submitting a request through the IVCSD, which we then process through the County of Santa Barbara financial networking system and the accounting and checking system, so that the employee can then be reimbursed for the purchase that was made. So this has become, pretty labor intense and very restrictive. A lot of times we want to go out and pick up something or purchase something. They ask for a credit card and we don't have a company credit card. We're using our personal credit cards instead. So we're hoping that today our recommendation is that you will authorize the general manager to enter into a commercial credit card or purchasing card agreement and to prepare a resolution for final approval for that at our next meeting. The staff has, again, been reaching out to credit card providers or purchasing card providers since the onset of the district. We did take advantage of our California Special District Association membership and looked at their buyer's guide and coupled that with our outreach to providers. We narrowed it down to 3 banking institutions to consider. Those are the, I can't read, Banner Bank, CalCard, which is supplied by US Bank, and then Umpqua Bank. And I'm going to bottom line it. Banner Bank, good offer, but they're still asking that we provide 3 years of financial data and that we actually establish a checking account in one of their local branches. With the CalCard, they're not asking for any credit information for CalCard because CalCard is not a credit card, it's a purchasing card. It's paid in full. It has an awesome rebate. Yeah, I hate to use that word, but it does. It has an awesome rebate program. If we pay off our balances early, they actually have a rebate program back to our unpaid balances, and we could experience like a 1% rebate on all of those expenses if they're paid early. The CalCard is a state of California purchasing card, and it's already got state of California credit worthiness approval, so there's a 0 APR, a late fee if we're late. So you can't beat the CalCard, and they're willing to work with us to set up a payment process through our current accounting systems, so that we can alleviate some of that paperwork and do some direct credit card payment. And that would save our staff a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and alleviate the necessity for us to put it on a credit card and then fill out an expense report and turn in a receipt and make copies, and you know how that goes. And then last but not least is Umpqua Bank. Umpqua is I'm sorry, it looks good as a provider also. Again, the only difference with them, or similar to the Banner Bank, is that they were looking for credit information, a credit limit. They would run a credit report. Yeah, and there wouldn't be any direct savings back to staff as we would experience with the credit card. And they also still require the 3 years financial, although they said we'll waive it for you. So they were looking to meet a service provision from one of the other card providers and not looking at our needs directly. I'm hoping Jonathan can choose one of these organizations because he has the most purchasing experience. And Bob's laughing, but we think these are our three best choices. The CSTA has provided information about these vendors. They're listed on their consulting group. So any of these will work. And we're just looking for you guys to authorize us to create a resolution to enter into an agreement with one of the providers of, Jonathan.
Thank you, Deborah. And yeah, I think I thought I had added the sentence here. I guess I didn't, but the recommendation is for CalCard, obviously, from what Deborah has mentioned. I thought we had added that in, but the CalCard seems to be the one that's, it's a purchasing card, not necessarily a credit card, but it's, operates the same. It meets the jobs that we need done. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear the board's input, but really the action is that, like we put up here, we wrote the motion because we knew this would be a complicated one. You'd authorize us to start working on the application and bring back the resolution for final approval so that once we do approve it at the next meeting, we can send everything in the next day and be on our way. So
it'll be about a 2 to 3 week time frame. So we're wanting to move it forward quickly also.
All right, excellent. Thanks for the presentation on this. Directors have thoughts, questions? Director Freeman and then Director Geis.
It wasn't clear to me from the request for a motion from staff whether or not the idea was that our board should say, please file an application for this specific choice, or whether it was merely a please submit applications and then continue a process. I do have an opinion on a choice, but I'm not certain if that's what's actually being asked of us.
Oh, yeah, we'll put in the choice that we put in the motion, commercial and or purchasing card, because that's the options. But
yeah. So you just want but the motion you're looking for isn't this one choice. It's commercial and or purchasing cards. You're just looking for
we're recommending it's CalCard. So,
okay, great. That's the one that I want you to do.
Yes,
so,
we should say CalCard.
But so do you want the motion to say CalCard, or do you? That's the thing I'm trying to understand here.
Yeah. Yes, that'd be great. I mean, it'd be great if it was CalCard. Yeah.
I will not bother providing reasons why I think it should be CalCard.
Oh, the reason. I mean, I think the.
Oh no, I'm saying I won't bother adding reasons why I think it should be CalCard. You're already also wanting CalCard.
Yes. No, I think Deborah made a good case for it. That it's the best one for us.
Director Geis and then Director Deschler.
Yeah. I've been through this issuing credit cards at the county for, I don't know, good part 25 years. And, we used to do it, hey, go find a local bank, give your business to the local bank. And then that local bank would have a great credit card service. We'd get great service, and then they'd sell the credit card service to another bank. And then we'd get really poor service because the bank would be back in Ohio. And so, I've been through a lot of local banks and a lot of good credit card processors and bad credit card processors. the final thing we ended up with at the county was CalCard. And it is a good processor. They do a good job. It's built for governments. And I just think it's you can just look, at the interest rates on these things. There is no interest rates on the CalCard because they expect you to pay off the balance every month, just like American Express. Where the other companies, their process might not be as good, as they really don't want you to pay off your balances. They want you to incur those interest charges because that's where they make the real money. So, I mean, CalCard for governments, just from my experience, that it's a good choice.
Yeah, Bob's right. With the CalCard, we have a 0 APR and we have a rebate program. With Umpqua, we had the rebate program, but our interest rate is like 21%. So the CalCard is our best bet.
Excellent. Director Deschler?
Yeah, when Jonathan was just first reading the title of this, I'm like, can we just approve? Because I've been in several meetings with Jonathan where we have all these great ideas. This is when I was not on the board, and Jonathan was like, I'd really like to do this, but I have to use my own personal credit card. And it's just like, yikes. So I think it's definitely a really good idea. So what I'm about to mention has nothing to do with the people who work for the IVCSD, but I just think, and maybe you covered this, Deborah, and I spaced it out, but I just think that it's important that there are financial protocols for who can purchase, who can approve, just to make sure that there's oversight of how funds get used for this card. So I don't know if you talked about that or not.
Yeah, it's a great point. We have a purchasing policy already, but it's very simple. And now with the credit card, purchasing card, we can make an update to it to reflect, our current situation. But excuse me, right now, the policy essentially is the general manager has to authorize all purchases, and I have authority up to 1,500, within board direction to make purchases, but then above that, we go to the board to approve before we make the purchase. So, but could be something for our policy committee to reconsider. And it has been something that's come up is, the limit too has been a question. Should we change the limit? But now also just our policies and practices of, now we have a card who's authorized. How do you deploy it? That's a good point.
Yeah, Kirsten, thank you for asking that question. That was another reason why we looked at the CalCard, because we didn't have to set a credit limit for every card, which also tied back to our policy. So this will give us more flexibility in our purchasing, and we can definitely go back and revise our purchasing guidelines or policies or parameters as we grow.
Yeah, I know with UCSB, we have a flex card. Each department can apply for a flex card, and there's very specific rules how it can be used, it can't be used. Every year you have to take a 30-minute trainer course to make sure you understand the rules, and it's big time serious. So there's a lot of restrictions on how it can be used, can't be used, and the person who's purchasing is not the person who makes the final approval. So anyhow, if you need any guidance on how to set that up, that's something I could share from the university.
That'd be great. This is our very simple policy right here. So not there yet, but it would be great to build this out.
Director Geis.
Yeah, I think we just have to look at the policy a little bit closer. I'm more used to having, like a $5,000 limit for our general manager. And, that's kind of the limit of buying something less than a fixed asset that you have to capitalize. Having a good review process that, if Jonathan buys his own, he uses his credit card, then somebody else is going to make up the claim and somebody else is going to make sure you attach the receipts. One of the bad things that people don't do with their credit cards is keep their receipts. So people need to keep their receipts. We also should talk about using these purchase cards for travel because I think you can use them for travel. And so we might want to think about that. And then the last thing I've seen happen with these credit cards is sometimes you have one card that has a $25,000 limit on it so that you could use it in case of an emergency. So it's like when you have to buy, you know, if we're staffing the community center for an emergency or something, and you want to buy food for the first responders or something, you know, you might want to use that kind of authority, or we might want to think about that a little bit. So, but I think you can put limits on these cards to say, hey, if somebody gets a hold of Jonathan's card and tries to spend it, you can put limits on those cards that they'll reject that transaction. If somebody goes in and tries to buy a car or something with it. So anyways.
Good points.
Those are good points. And I'm sure that when we have Steph bring back a contract, that it'll have the limits and all of that in it. So
we could probably ask the county for their policy and maybe UCSB's for their policy, and we can pull the best ideas off of there.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably a separate issue from what we're agendized to consider right now, but still very good things for the policy committee to think about. I think staff made a compelling case for the cow card. It definitely was the one that I was eyeing too. It's kind of cool that doesn't even really seem, it's not a credit card, it's a purchasing card. It's like a debit card, but maybe not quite exactly. But I think it's great, and I'm so happy. It feels like it's almost silly that it took this long for us to be able to get one. But it's all the more sweet because we had to wait for it. Director Geis.
Remember, when you're using these cards, whoever's taking your card is paying a fee against that purchase. So if you're buying something for $500, the fee they might pay is 2% of the purchase. They have to pay the credit card company, and that's how you end up getting these rebates. The credit card company won't keep the whole 2%. They'll give you 1% back. And so remember, credit card companies are in business to make money. They make money on two sides. One, whoever takes the credit card, if you go to a restaurant, they take a credit card, they're paying a free fee to the credit card company. And then on the other side, whoever's holding the credit card, they make a lot of money on interest if you don't pay your balances timely. So credit cards are popular, and that's why they send you a lot of things in the mail.
Excellent. Well, this has been good. I think we're at the point where we're ready for a motion. Does anyone would like to make one?
I'll make a motion. I would like to move approval for the general manager to have authority to enter into a purchasing card agreement with CalCard. Is that right?
Well said. I'll second it.
Okay.
All right. Motion made by Deschler and seconded by Geis. All right. Any public comment on this motion? All right. Any other board discussion? Okay. I think we're ready to vote then.
Wait, Director Brent?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Deschler?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Geis?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this together, and we're excited. It feels like we're going to the next level. All right. I'm going to go to reports before we go to closed session, just in the interest of the public and those that might not be participating in our closed session. So we'll start from members of the board. Any board reports? Director Flaherty.
I just wanted to give a brief report on the nightlife committee. We had given a brief update last meeting, but because it was a special meeting, we wanted to make sure that We could still say it here during our regular ones, but wanted to say that Marcos, Ethan, and I had a very successful presentation at IVRPD, and we're excited to announce that Director Valenti and Raman will be joining us in our planning. So we're super excited about that. And there was a lot of support and excitement for our project, which was really awesome to see. So it was a very successful presentation, and we're excited for the next steps.
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Dr. Flaherty. Any other reports from board members? Director Bertrand.
Thank you. I'll just mention that I attended the last Associated Students Senate meeting and gave a brief public comment on the public safety survey that we have, encouraging senators and anyone watching to complete it. It's something I want to do more outreach on, just because it was a really cool thing that we put together, and we definitely want the community to know it's there and be able to use it. But that was my first.
I think we lost Director Bertrand.
We totally lost him.
Yikes, yeah, that was
Not in the meeting.
okay. Well, if he rejoins, we'll let him finish his report. I
was at the Senate meeting and the presentation went really well.
Great.
Just because it's
I think you were cutting in and out a little bit, Catherine.
She's frozen. Oh.
Catherine, you were cutting in and out a little bit. All right, I guess we just have a community-wide Wi-Fi issues right now. Knock on wood. And I see Ethan is on his way back in. Ethan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was dropped from the call at the worst moment. I'm not sure how much you heard, but I attended the last Associated Students meeting, gave a quick mention of our public safety survey, encouraging members of the AS Senate and students to complete it. That was the first public engagement that I've done on it, but I hope to go to other groups, potentially present to classes as well, just encouraging people to participate in the survey.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. Okay, I will give a quick report. So today at the County Board of Supervisors meeting, the board considered their long-range planning and development work program. And there was a good discussion about Isla Vista. I spoke during public comment and just drew attention to our efforts under the STEP grant and what that process is going to look like, and drew attention just to the community energy around the issue of planning and transportation and parking and all of these things. And Supervisor Hartman asked the board to sort of join Isla Vista into this work program. And we are essentially, I think in the future, will be successful at that. And so this is, the program for the next essentially 4 years. So I don't think that we're necessarily expecting anything soon. We have our own process already going with the STEP grant, but I think that it will end up hopefully being able to dovetail very nicely with some more discussion about the Isla Vista master plan and community planning in general once we conclude that process. I'll also report that I gave a report to LAFCO about just quarterly what our activities were. I think I'm going to keep doing that. It seemed like it was well received, and even though we, just to be frank, don't see the same hostility from LAFCO staff that we do now. We see it that we did in the past. Sorry, we see everything going in a really positive direction now. I'm just going to continue to keep them informed on what we're doing. Okay, any reports from committees? All right, and then the staff pay and benefits ad hoc committee will meet tomorrow. Report from district council.
Thank you, President Brandt. Just a quick report on the Federal American Rescue Act. Over the past couple of months, we've been keeping you updated on whether any efforts at the state or the federal level are going to result in any money being programmed for COVID-19 related expenses and relief for special districts. The Special Districts Association has been working very hard to try and ensure that some of the federal money would be programmed for that purpose. The Senate version of the bill, it didn't include any specific monies for earmarked for special districts because special districts don't exist in every state. But what the Senate bill did include was legislation that would enable other jurisdictions to transfer money to special districts. So example, any money going to the state of California, the state can set up a transfer fund to have some of that money go for special districts. And since special districts outnumber cities in the state by an order of magnitude, we do believe that that's likely something that the state is going to consider. Counties also got a pot of money, and population cities with populations above and below a certain threshold also got designated funds. So there are some differences between the Senate bill and the House bill. So there'll be a conference committee and then follow up simple majority votes to have those passed. That's not expected to be controversial given the majorities in both houses. So we'll continue to monitor potential opportunities for some reimbursements to offset the COVID-19 relief efforts of IVCSD. And if that becomes available, or if anything else comes available for any type of infrastructure improvement related to this bill, we'll keep you apprised. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Ross. All right, report from General Manager.
Great. I'll also share my screen at the end about the agenda, future agenda topics. You can give input on those. But in terms of the last couple of weeks since the last board meeting, one great update is our safe parking program. We have one user now of the program through New Beginnings who's been identified to start. So that's happening because we approved that back in July. In terms of homelessness, we got reached out to by the county to do a presentation on phase 2 of addressing homelessness in Santa Barbara County, and they want to do a presentation to our board at the next meeting or the one after. They have a general presentation of information, but they wanted to ask what other topics related to homelessness would we want included in our presentation. So they said, you guys probably obviously want to hear about the ending phase of the pallet shelter, but what else would you like to hear about? So let me know, and I'll be talking with Lucille Boss, who's the person who'll be coming to do the presentation. But yeah, she reached out on saying, what do you all want to have added to yours specific to Isla Vista? So let me know. Compost Collective is going well. We are, we're about to close for the spring break period when most of our employees are going to be traveling, and we're going to reopen the compost collection on April 5th. So once people are projected to return, a week after that. And yeah, we mentioned, I think it's been mentioned, the planning discussion at the board of supervisors that we attended today, the Deltopia work we've been doing, and we did have a couple PRA requests come in that we responded to. They were pretty simple, but I want to just keep the board updated on these things that we did get requests on our salaries and spending and projects. So we responded to those. And then one last thing is our interns are continuing to do good work on the presentation on alternatives to armed responses to policing, and they should be ready soon with their product with their presentation to present to you all. And they've made contact with SNAP and Cahoots to start talking with them about presenting at the board as well, which is one of the actions we took last year. So both those are coming up in the next couple meetings. So that's an exciting topic. And besides that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Are there any questions for Jonathan? Director Deschler.
Yes, earlier in the evening, you alluded to perhaps there being a special meeting with regards to a contract for Deltopia. I just wondered, what is the timing? I know you probably don't know, but I remember you saying there was like a kind of a end date that we had to negotiate a contract, and I just wonder what the timing of that is, if you can say.
The timing is going to be very tight. I mean, it's pretty much less than 48 hours from now. Like, it's on Thursday. So if we had a special meeting, it'll be a special meeting that will do, very quick turnaround. And the reason is because we're waiting to hear back on funding decisions from other partners, associate students in UCSB. So once we hear back from them, hopefully, as first thing in the morning, we can make that decision on where we're going.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Then with that, I think we're gonna go into closed session. I would just want to say for the public and for the board, I don't think that this will be a long closed session. So if you do want to stay with us, feel free. So this is Conference of Real Property Negotiators for 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar. Negotiators are Spencer Brandt, Bob Geis, Jonathan Aboud, Ross Trindle, and the parties are the Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara under negotiation, price and terms of payment. All right.
And Director Brandt, I'll be recusing myself from this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. All right, we'll adjourn to closed session now and be back in a number of minutes.
Okay, give me 1 second. All right, well. Ross, I think you might be muted. No.
Yep,
Okay.
I was just waiting for the announcement. We're back in open session.
Oh.
The Board of Directors has returned to open session from closed session. The discussion was real property negotiations regarding 970 and 976 Embarco Del Mar with the negotiating teams as listed on the agenda. Discussion took place. The board received updates from the negotiation team, but no reportable action was taken.
All right, thanks, Ross. Next is future meeting dates and agenda items.
Let me just share my screen very quickly so that we could see what's coming up next on the agenda. Can you see that? All right, so this is our agenda next week already. There might be other things that make it on too, but these are the for sure's that we're working towards.
All right. Any additional items that directors would like to add?
Does surplus mean surplus funding?
Yeah, it's from the retreat. We had that large, surplus above our reserves, and it's part of our budget process discussion. Is let's have an initial, board can give direction to our finance committee of where we should start thinking of deploying part or all of it.
I have something to add, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate here, so I'll just say it anyways.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Spencer, I was really struck by you opening the meeting in a moment of silence for Father John Hedges, and I thought it was really, I'm so glad that you did that. I didn't work with him as part of the board, but he was such an amazing pivotal figure in our community and has touched so many lives. And I just wonder if there ought not to be some type of more formal recognition or something that the board can do to recognize the person that he was, the contributions that he's made to the community. And I don't know if that's a plaque or a bench or something, but I would like to ask that we consider that, because I think that he was just a very important person in many people's lives. So there you go.
Actually, Deborah has some ideas on that and had something she was working on. So we can bring that at the next meeting. We were waiting to see where other people's interests was, but that's something we can do.
I'm glad you brought that up, Director Deschler, and I know he's not here, but Director Bertrand and I had a similar conversation about what's something permanent, and we're brainstorming as well. My favorite idea was the Father John Hedges Isla Vista Community Center. But I know we'll have a bunch of excellent ideas from staff as well. Director Geis, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Maybe we could have some kind of like a little founders area in the community center in the long term, because there's been, some really key players over a long period of time that have made that a reality. But, Father John in that community center, he ran the homeless services out of there as part of the church, and then that's who we bought the property from. So he was a really key component for the community center being there for forever. So
yeah, I think that's a great idea. The last thing I'll mention is me, Ethan, and Jonathan all had the privilege of attending his memorial service. And it was just so incredible to me to see the diversity of people that he touched. Members of his congregation, folks like us, activists out in Isla Vista, members of the sheriff's office, including the sheriff himself, people who were formerly incarcerated and experiencing homelessness. I mean, it's been said many times, but he really was just such a force in our community for justice in so many different ways. And I thought that was the most moving thing about the service for me, and I'll never forget that. All right. On that note, I think we will entertain a motion to adjourn to our next meeting, March 23rd.
I move for adjournment.
I will
get
second.
Motion by Deschler, second by Freeman. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All right, let's go to a vote.
Brent,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Flaherty, Aguilar, Deschler,
Yes.
Bertrand. Guys,
We never invited Ethan back.
that's right.
I'll text him and tell him we can watch that. Okay, thanks everyone. Looking forward to seeing you all probably soon, within the next 48 hours. See you back here on Zoom soon. Take care.
Hey, Spence, do we have a meeting at 1 tomorrow?
Yes, I'll
Is
send
it one? Yes.
on benefit.
All right, thanks.
And I might give you a call if we're gonna work on that thing
Okay.
before you get out of town. Okay.
Okay. All right. Bye.